Hey, it's Jody Taylor of SnackySays.com. Welcome to the Convert episode of Snacky Says. So I recorded this episode and I'm about to post it and realized, wait a minute, I need to make a couple of clarifications. So here I am. This is Editing Jody. So the convert, I'm really talking about the idea of the experience I've been having since I've changed the way that I eat. I, for the first time, feel like a bit of an outsider, and I never had that experience with other fitness-related experiments or changes. So the first clarification, the example I give, I do a little bit of a story time in the beginning, is, I grew up Catholic school, Catholic church. As an adult, I've met folks who converted to Catholicism as adults. And I didn't make that clear. I said something like, as an adult, I've met Catholics. What I meant to say is, as an adult, I've met converted Catholics or Catholics who had converted as adults. And second clarification, I realized that in this episode, and now I wonder if I do this in general, I conflate not eating meat and cutting down on processed foods. So I'll say something like, I'm not eating processed foods right now, but maybe in 10 years I'll eat steak. So if you're not familiar with my podcast, if you haven't heard me talk about my health and fitness journey before, even if you have, you might be like, what are you talking about? So I just wanted to make those two clarifications. In my mind, because I stopped eating meat and cutting down on processed foods right around the same time, I think I just conflate them and I talk about them interchangeably. Okay. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Let me know if you've had experiences like this, being a convert, or your interactions with converts. I go into that a little bit. Anyway, thank you. This is Jody Taylor, Snacky Says, episode next. Hey, it's Jody Taylor of SnackySays.com. Welcome back to my podcast. Today, I'd like to chat about the convert. I'm a convert. I'm going to start with some non-fitness examples to give you a sense of where I'm going with this, and then I'm going to bring it back to like health and fitness. So in my definition, my experience with converts is, I'll start with an example. So I was raised Catholic school, Catholic church. As an adult, I've met Catholics, and my interactions with them have all been great. I've found that they seem to be more knowledgeable about Catholicism than I am, and more zealous, more excited, and by the book. And I think I'm at the point now with my health and fitness, in particular the nutritional part, where I definitely check all of those boxes. Now, if you are heavy into, I can think of a few people right now off the top of my head who know way more about nutrition than I do. So maybe I don't check that box. So yeah, that's where I'm going with it. That's my definition, right? So I'll give you an example of someone who might be a convert and talk about my road to how I became a convert. I guess I'll start with the factors that led me to where I am now. Serendipity, events, like life events, life experience, interventions, and what I'll call uncalled-for, unsolicited comments, because that's in there too. So let's use the non-fitness example first. Let's say you have a job, you're always at work, you cancel plans with your friends to stay late at work, to work overtime. You don't go on vacations, or you go on vacation and you're doing work during your vacation. People tell you, listen, hey, this is too much. Like, you missed my graduation. I told you about it 2 months ago. You were late to my wedding. Insert, fill in the blank. And you're like, nope, gotta go to work. They can't do this without me. I really need to submit this part. And a few years go by and you get laid off. And just like that, you're a convert. Oh, okay. So my family and friends, probably more important than work. All these years I've been focused on work. I didn't cultivate any hobbies. I didn't connect with folks that maybe I could have connected with. And now what? Now Of course, I still want to work, but it's not going to be my whole world. You now converted because of an event that happened. There were interventions that happened along the way. This event solidified it for you. So I'll bring that back to fitness using the examples or the categories that I mentioned earlier. And I'm talking about how I used to eat. There was nothing intrinsically wrong with the way I ate. It just didn't serve me. So I would have unsolicited comments or advice. For example, I've walked into a party and been told, oh, you're so big, you got so big, oh, you put on so much weight. I've also walked into a room and it's like, oh, you're so skinny, you don't lose any more weight, that's it. Right? That's not a greeting, but some people take comments on your appearance as a greeting. And I should say, in my experience, I know that the folks weren't trying to like hurt my feelings or anything. That being said, it's just not a greeting. However, it is part of the journey, and some of those comments, for better or worse, stuck in my head. And I will say, though, due to life experience, I now know, I've experienced that you don't know what's going on with people. You could have gained weight or lost weight due to a medical condition, due to stress, because you eat in real good, life is sweet, and you are enjoying the fruits of your labor. It could be any reason, and maybe you don't want to talk about it at a dinner party or in the middle of the streets, because you ran into somebody. So those are my experiences and feelings on that. Next up is the intervention. So intervention would be, like, a good example would be me and sodium, salt. I used to love salt. No, I still love salt. I love salt. Salt, soy sauce, I love them. And when I was little, I loved nothing more than a bowl of rice with butter and soy sauce. And my mom used to say to me, Jody, you didn't even taste the food. You didn't even taste the food, and you're putting salt on it. That's too much salt. It's too much salt. She was consistent. She always told me that. She talked to me soft, she talked to me hard. It's the same thing. I would just go to town with the salt and the soy sauce. So an event that happened related to my mom's consistent interventions was that my landlady, at the age of 39, this is years after my mom well, that's not true. Even at that time, my mom was telling me I was eating too much salt. But I had a landlady, and on a Thursday or Friday morning, she had a stroke. I found out about it on the Sunday after, so a couple of days after. And by Monday or Tuesday, she had passed away, like that fast. It wasn't even a whole week. And she was 39. And after years of my mom's interventions, that event crystallized things for me. And even though I don't know exactly why she had her stroke, maybe it had nothing to do with her salt intake, I said, okay, that is enough. Also, around that time, or even a few years before that time, I began to notice more and more folks in my family, like, not eating, not just family, like in general, folks not putting salt on their food because they had hit a ceiling with their sodium intake, and now it was affecting their health and causing medical issues. So no more food with salt. So these things combined really affected me, cutting down on my salt, like, drastically. You can't even compare it. There are other things that happened along the way. Like, a few years ago, my sister was the first person that I saw using a food scale, and I was like, hard pass. I'm not even going to consider that. I'm not interested. I just want to eat what I'm eating. I don't want to weigh it. By the way, she never asked me if I wanted to use a food scale, if I was interested. But I was just like, no, not for me. And here we are. I've been using a food scale now for over a year, and it helps me measure things. 10-year-old me, nope, 20, nope. 2 years ago, I would laugh. I would just laugh. I'd be like, no, I would never do that. I'd never be that kind of person. But here I am. I've just found that I had no idea how much I was eating. I didn't know what a serving size was. Never mind a portion size. Portion size is how much I'm actually eating. Serving size is the recommendation or I guess the instructions on the label. I had no idea, man. I was eating like 3-5 times more than what a serving size was. Easily. Pick whatever. Chicken, well, I stopped eating chicken a few years ago. Beef, French fries, rice, you name it, I was overeating that thing. And I had no idea until I started measuring my food. It also helped me to figure out, like, when exactly did I start feeling full? You know, when I was little, my mom would be like, please finish eating that food. If it wasn't that bowl of magical rice with butter and soy sauce, most of the time she'd be like, okay, please finish that food. And when you're a kid, if you have littles, you know, it's like, oh, I'm done. Kids know, because they're still in tune. So I've had to figure out like how to be in tune and ask myself. So that's been part of the journey. So now I think I've covered the interventions, events, unsolicited comments. So here I am, the convert. And because I've had these experiences, I'm reluctant to be the jerk in the room, because I remember, like everybody remembers, if you've known me more than 2 years, I was the one that was leading the charge with the burgers and milkshakes. But I like it's kind of difficult because I feel like, knowing what I know, right? The example I like to give for context, to give you like a snapshot, is red is a color. It's not an ingredient. I know that now. I mean, that's my belief. You can disagree. And there are foods, plenty of foods that I've eaten with red as an ingredient. I think it's like red 40. It's not always red 40, but like red is really a color. You know, if you're using berries to color something, sure. It's not just a color, it's an ingredient. You're using like red berries. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox. I'm just trying to give context as to where I feel like this contradiction, or this rub, or this discomfort with like what I know. And so I'm bringing this up because if I'm doing the snack run, or if I'm going to buy you a food gift, it's like, let's say you eat, let's say we go for fast food. I'm making this up. We go to a restaurant and there's ketchup. I generally don't eat ketchup because it has high fructose corn syrup, and I don't eat high fructose corn syrup anymore. Not because it isn't yummy. I always want to make that really clear. Processed foods, things with high fructose corn syrup, I've been eating them longer than I have been, way longer than I've been eating the way I'm eating now. There's nothing wrong with the taste. I'm just like, how do I react? How does my body react to it? How do I feel like it's good for me? You don't have to look far to find someone who is really fit and eating the hell out of processed foods. Hello. That was me just a few years ago. I was pretty fit. Like, I'm like the best right now, but there was really nothing off. I'm just, I guess, the optimized version of myself, because I wasn't eating in a way that was serving me the most. And that might change. I might feel like next year, in a couple of years, or 10 years from now, you know what I really need? A steak. And then I will eat the steak, and it'll be a different conversation. But anyway, to bring it on home, where I was going with all of this before I went down a rabbit hole is, I do feel this discomfort because I know what I know. And then if I'm going on a snack run or buying you, like, I guess it comes down to, do I want to give you something that I wouldn't eat myself? And then the answer I keep coming back to is, it depends. It depends, right? So like with my mom, even if she was like, don't eat salt, it doesn't mean she never cooked with salt. It doesn't mean that she wouldn't, she would knock some French fries out of my hands because they had salt on it. Like, it just depends. Where she was going with it is like, are you doing too much with that salt? Right? And so with the work example, yes, it's great to be engaged with work, but are you doing too much? Are you giving up too much for this thing? I personally don't believe in balance. I just don't. Like, if you try to balance things, you're going to exhaust yourself. So there are times where you are giving more within reason. Like, you're giving more. Like, you have a presentation that's going to take your career into the stratosphere. Yeah, man, go for it. Should you be putting that same energy into work every single day? Debatable. So anyway, thanks for listening to all this. I'm really thinking out loud. It's been truly on my mind for a long time now, because I do think on one hand converts can be a little bit much. Good naturedly, I say that as a convert, because it's like, hey, relax, sis. You were just eating them steaks with me not too long ago. But there's also knowing that it comes from a good place, a place of joy and excitement with everything you've learned. You know, whether that's you're into a new to you religion or a new to you way of life, whether that's a career or health. You know, it's hard to contain like this information, because you could have saved, maybe you can save someone a headache. Maybe you can save someone's life by being like, listen, intervention time, you need to take your medicine. You're prescribed this medicine for a reason. Or intervention time, you're taking this medicine and you're having serious adverse effects. Like, it's really good to have another voice, you know? It's really good to have another voice. And on a very personal level, um, I would hate to see someone hurting themselves in some way by, like, again, those examples I gave earlier. And it's like, do you want to be that friend who's like, you know, I was thinking maybe you should have done A, B, and C? Or do you want to be the friend who is like, hey, do A, B, and C? Like, put it out there, plant the seeds. I didn't change overnight. Far from it. It's taken me years to get to this point. But what if my mom just gave up? What if she never said several times, hey, Jody, 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 Jody? I wouldn't be where I am today, because she insisted and she was consistent with that, you know? And it's made a difference. You know, the funny thing about being a convert is now I I'm like, she could have never anticipated this, never. Like, you know, I was getting snacks for her a few months ago, and I was like looking at the label, the sodium content, the sugar, like what's in these ingredients. Never. She would have never anticipated this ever. So I'm way more zealous than she ever was. So here we are. All right. Thank you for listening. I hope this is helpful in some way if you are a convert or if you're thinking about doing an intervention for someone. Yeah, these are just things I've been thinking about. I really appreciate you listening. If you'd like to support Jody's Substack, my Substack, and the Snacky Says podcast, please share this post, this episode. I'd really appreciate it. You can share it with a friend or two. This is Jody Taylor of snackysays.com. Thank you for listening.